So there's a lot of misinformation and confusion out there surrounding traveling to Thailand right now. So in this video, we're going to try and clear some of that up because I did a lot of research today and even I got extremely confused. So I've got my laptop here again, going to be reading a lot of information for you. So in this video, I'm going to be covering information for people who have been approved already to come to Thailand for the Thailand Pass, people who have applied but haven't been approved yet, and people who want to apply but haven't started that process yet. Also, I'm going to be covering flying into Thailand and also crossing the land border from Laos to Thailand, because that's the only land border open right now and that's how we got to Thailand. So we'll be covering that as well and everything you need to know. But first, a quick disclaimer before we carry on. All these travel requirements and schemes and stuff are changing super fast. Like every week it's something new. So just be aware that the information in this video might not be relevant in a week or a month. So just be aware that the information changes super fast. So this is as up to date as it possibly is right now. So let's dive right in. So the latest update to come out of Thailand is that the Thailand Pass is now closed for all new Test and Go and Sandbox applications. So from the 22nd of December, you can no longer apply for the Test and Go scheme. So the Test and Go scheme, if you didn't know, is when you enter, you do a 24-hour quarantine, and then you're free to go around Thailand. That was for the vaccinated travelers. That has been closed because of the Omicron variant has now reached Thailand, unless it's for the Phuket Sandbox. So that is a Test and Go scheme that is still open. And they are going to review these measures on January 4th, 2022, so stay tuned for that. Keep your eyes peeled for whatever comes out on that date. It might just get postponed after that, but who knows, we'll see what happens. So the already approved applicants. So if you've already got your QR code, you've already got your certificate of entry that says yes, you can go to Thailand, then this is what you need to know. So listen up. So the applicants who have received their Thailand Pass QR code can enter Thailand under the scheme that they've registered. So say if you've applied to go in February but they've just closed now, you can still go in February and you will still be testing and going. You won't be quarantining. It doesn't change anything. You've already been approved. You can do what you've been approved to do. So there's no cut-off date for that. You just can go whenever you've already applied for. So if you've received a Thailand Pass, you can still enter under the previously agreed conditions and on the date that you wrote on the application. However, from the 24th of December onwards, you have to do a second PCR test on day 5 or 6 at a government-approved medical facility, but the government is responsible for that expense, so you won't be paying for that second COVID test. You'll only be paying for the first one that you do within the 24 hours on arrival. And also from the 22nd of December onwards, the Phuket Sandbox applicants must pay for 2 PCR tests themselves. So the second test has to be done on day 5 or 6 when you're still in Phuket, and then after day 7 you can leave Phuket and go wherever you want in Thailand. So I'm not sure if those tests would be included in your hotel price when you book the hotel, so just double check with them. If not, you might have to pay for an extra one. Okay, the second part of this video is for people who have already applied for their Thailand Pass but they have not been approved yet. So applicants who have registered but have not received their QR code, you need to wait for your Thailand Pass to be considered and approved, and if it's approved then you can enter Thailand under the scheme that you've registered in. So if you've already applied before the Test and Go is cancelled to do the Test and Go, it could still get approved and you could still do that. It's not like it's just fully stopped, you know? So you need to just wait, and there's a lot of information going around that people have been rejected for no reason at all. There was nothing wrong with the applications. We'll get onto that in a bit and how to deal with that. But yeah, if you get approved, then that's great. You can come to Thailand under your Test and Go scheme. You don't have to quarantine or anything like that. I'm so out of breath. Okay. So if you have not applied yet, but you do want to apply and come to Thailand soon, this is what you need to know. So the new applicants, unfortunately, you will not be able to register for the Test and Go scheme. The Thailand Pass is only going to accept new applicants seeking to enter Thailand under the alternative quarantine, so the AQ, or the Phuket Sandbox only. So I think that if you're vaccinated, the best option for you would be to do the Phuket Sandbox, because you have the freedom of the island for the 7 days that you're there. So basically, you arrive, you do the 24 hours quarantine, you get the negative test, you can still explore Phuket for the 7 days, and then you get another negative test, and then you can go anywhere in Thailand. So at the moment, that seems like the best option to do if you're vaccinated. Other than that, you can now go to like Bangkok or fly into Thailand, but you do have to do the alternative quarantine, which is 7 days long for vaccinated. If you're unvaccinated, it's 10 days long, the quarantine in an AQ hotel. So I'll quickly So a quick recap on the quarantine requirements for different statuses, whether you're vaccinated or not. So vaccinated travelers, if you've had a vaccine within 14 days before traveling, you only have to quarantine for 7 days. If you are unvaccinated, it's 10 days. And if you are coming from a country that is very high risk, such as the African countries at the moment, it is 14 days quarantine. But this is constantly being reviewed, so keep your eyes out for that. And yeah, check which country you're from and what you're required to quarantine for, because it's different for every single country. Okay, so now we cleared up all of that information because it was really confusing online to kind of make sense of all of that. I had to check multiple sources, and the news outlets that I read did not fully explain it in the depth that I needed it to explain it in, if you know what I mean. So it is possible to come to Thailand if you're unvaccinated. It is possible to still come if you are vaccinated. You just have to do the quarantines, or you can go to Phuket and have a bit more freedom, which is probably the best option. But yeah, let's move on to what you actually need to do to enter Thailand. This is going to be different if you're flying into Thailand or if you're crossing from the land border. There is only one land border again, which is from Laos to Thailand. So if you're in Laos right now, stay tuned because I'll be talking about how we came to Thailand at the end of this video and what you need for that. But let's talk about what you need to fly into Thailand. So first of all, what you need is a passport, obviously. Secondly, a flight booking, also obviously. Third, you need an insurance covering up to 50,000 US dollars. I'll put a link to the insurance that we bought in the description below because that one is approved by the Thai government, and if you get rejected in your application you can get a full refund before you go, so you're not losing out on anything if you get rejected. You also need a hotel booking and a paid confirmation with a letter from the hotel before you go. Some of them accept a deposit instead of just paying the whole thing, but that's up to you what you want to do. You need to check with the hotel that you're booking with. There's also different types of hotels you need to book depending on what kind of scheme you're entering the country. So if you're entering to do the Phuket Sandbox, you need to book a Shah Plus hotel for 7 days if you're vaccinated. And if you are coming into Bangkok or not a sandbox scheme, you're vaccinated or unvaccinated, you need a booking for the amount of time the quarantine requires. So 7 days if you're vaccinated, 10 days if you're unvaccinated. You also need your vaccine card if you have it, and you also need a negative PCR test within 72 hours of your arrival, which you don't need that before you apply, you can do that later. You need to make sure you have the hotel confirmation, you need to make sure you have the insurance and all of this stuff booked and ready before you apply online for the Thailand Pass. You need, because you're going to have to fill all of that information in and submit all these kind of letters when you're applying. So make sure you have that ready before you actually go through all the application process. So the Thai government have already updated the website, so when you go to apply, you can't apply for the test and go scheme anymore. It's like grayed out. So you have the two options, there's just the Phuket or the AQ. So I've got the links in the description for where you can apply, and they actually have all this information there as well. So you just go in, click on the one that you want, accept the terms and conditions, and then you fill in all your information and then go through the application process. If you're flying to Thailand, that's what you have to do. So obviously we didn't fly into Thailand, so we can't give you that much advice on how that process works, but I think it takes around 5 to 7 business days to get approved. But at the moment there is just so many applications, and when they announced that they were going to stop the test and go, they had so many more people applying, so it might take a long time. You might get randomly rejected, but you can just go on and apply again. If there's nothing wrong with your application and everything goes smoothly, then you should get approved. It should work out for you. There is just a lot of people that they're dealing with right now, so try and be patient with that and stay calm. You'll be able to come to Thailand, don't worry. So now let's move on to the information for the people who want to cross the land border from Laos to Thailand. It's the only land border that is open to get into Thailand right now. It's the one that we crossed. We saw online on the news that from the 23rd of December they had decided not to do the test and go scheme because they were going to include that in the test and go scheme, and they said that the bridge never opened in the first place. That's not necessarily true, because we did cross across the bridge. We had friends that crossed across the bridge, so it is possible to do that. So I'm going to tell you what you need to do if you're in Laos and you want to come to Thailand across the bridge, because it's still open. You can still do it. The first thing you need to do is call the Thai embassy. I'll put the number in the description. You need to call them and book an appointment with them, and then I think it's usually only Thursdays that they're open, so it might be on a Thursday, maybe a Wednesday, I'm not sure, but they're only open for a few hours on that day. It's like a very small time gap that you have to get your application in, and you have to be prepared before you go, because we had issues where we didn't have all the documents prepared and they just rejected us immediately. They were like, you're not ready, you don't have everything, so just come back again in 2 weeks, because we weren't ready for it. So please have everything ready when you go, otherwise you're just not going to have a chance. So to go from Laos to Thailand through the land border, the Friendship Bridge from Vientiane to Nong Khai, if you're vaccinated, it is a 7-day quarantine. If you're unvaccinated, it's a 14-day quarantine. I'm not entirely sure why it's 14 days from land, but only 10 days if you fly. That's just how it is. Maybe it will change in the future, but for now, that's the information that we have. That's what it is. So what you need to do is, when you go to your appointment that you'll be given on the phone, when they tell you to come, you need to turn up with these following documents. So you need to have an already pre-booked hotel confirmation, like you would if you were flying, for the 7 or 14 days that you're quarantining for, in an AQ approved hotel. We'll put a link in the description to a list of hotels that are available in Nong Khai to book. We could only find one at the time when we were looking, which is the one where we are now. It was really hard to find any other hotels outside of Bangkok and Pattaya and stuff that you could quarantine in, but we actually found a website the other day that had a few, so maybe you could contact them and find out which one is the cheapest option or the best option for you. When you book and pay them, they'll send you a confirmation letter that you've booked with them. You need to take that with you. You also need the insurance, so the exact same insurance as if you were flying. I've got a link to that in the description, like I said. You have to print that off and take it with you. You need your passport, obviously, again. You need 2 passport photos with you to put on your visa application. You need your vaccine card if you're vaccinated, and you also need 3 months of bank statements. So I'm not sure if that's necessary for flying into Thailand. I haven't seen that information anywhere, but if you're crossing the land border, you do need the 3-month bank statements. I'm not sure why, that's just what they require. And also a quick tip, make sure that if you're partners, even if you share a card, make sure you have separate bank statements and it has to have your name on it, because me and Mario, we just share a bank card. We don't really use separate accounts, but because we're not married and our names are not both on the account, they nearly rejected us again. So make sure you have both of your accounts and your account name, and you're gonna have to have separate ones if you're not actually married and have a joint account. So when you arrive to your appointment at the Thai embassy in Laos, I'll also put the location in the description because we got super lost trying to find it. We ended up at like 3 different buildings that didn't even exist anymore. We'll put the right one in the description. But when you get there, you need to fill out the Thai visa document that has the 2 passport photos at the top. And then you also have to fill out a declaration form, which is just like how you're getting into the country, where you're going to be when you're there, where you're staying, if you have any symptoms, blah blah blah. So you fill out both of those forms, and then you give all of this to the guy at the door. He'll check it all for you, make sure you've got everything there, and then they'll tell you that they will call you like the next day or the day after to tell you if you've been approved or rejected. But if you get rejected, it's okay. They'll probably tell you why that was, and then you can just reapply again in a week or 2, make another appointment and reapply. But when we were applying, there was a lot of people that had just discovered that you could cross the land border to Thailand, so there was a lot of applicants, so you really have to get there early, first thing, get in the queue and get it done. So once you get that very nice phone call where they tell you that it's been approved and you can come and pick up your passport and your documents, when you pick up the documents you'll get your certificate of entry, which basically says the date you're going to arrive, so whatever date you wrote you want to go, and your vaccine status or whatever on there. And that's also what you need to enter Thailand as well. You need to keep that safe. That's a very important document. And then you also need to do a PCR test 3 days before you go to Thailand across the land border. You need a negative COVID test as well. There's a lot of stuff you need, guys. We went through all of this. It was really stressful. So just be prepared, there's a lot of paperwork. I'm just gonna quickly cover the confusion around applications that have been rejected. We saw on a Facebook group that two people, like a couple like me and Mario, had applied the exact same application, the exact same insurance, everything, but one of them got rejected because the insurance wasn't correct, even though it was the same insurance. But in fact they probably just got rejected because there's too many applicants, so they're just rejecting a few, approving some. You're just gonna have to reapply. That's all that is. So if you've been rejected after the deadline for like missing or incorrect documents, what you should do is write to this email. I'm gonna put it in the description and they're gonna get back to you. You need to be patient though, because there is well, they announced they had 22,000 applicants waiting to be processed, which is a lot of people, and that was before the deadline was announced. So then they had loads more applying. So you've got to be patient with these things. They can't get back to everyone at the same time. I'm sure they'll get back to you. I'm sure you'll be here in Thailand enjoying this beautiful country. I also want to quickly summarize a few of the websites where I got all this information from, and websites and sites and Facebook things that I think you should follow to get more information and to find out more if you want to double check a few things once you decide what scheme you want to come into Thailand on. To be honest, the best place to go for information is Facebook groups. I know Facebook is not very well known for its reliable information, but join in a couple of Facebook groups about Thailand travel during this time. You can see other people's experiences on how their process went, people who have actually got into Thailand. I think that they're the best people to ask about these things because they've been through the process, they've got accepted, so they know how to do it. And also you can ask us in the comments if you're confused about something. Really, we only have good information on crossing the land border because we haven't flown in. We're only giving you what I've researched and found out as much as I can online. So yeah, join a Facebook group, ask a couple questions there. Also, another great news source for Thailand would be Richard Barrow in Thailand. If you don't follow him already, you probably should be following him. He's like the best news source for Thailand. He gets all his information from the official sources, from the government. He's really up to date. He posts all day, every day, everything that's happening in Thailand. He's like the Thailand information guru. He has everything on his page on Facebook, so go and follow that. Okay, I know all this just sounded maybe really confusing. I tried to make it as simple as possible into like 3 different groups for people who've applied, been approved, or haven't applied. But yeah, I'm gonna put loads and loads of links in the description to like everything I've talked about today, so you can just find it super easy and apply if you want to, or however you want to get into Thailand. I'm going to make it all as easy as possible, so check the links in the description. Double check the information once you've chosen what scheme you want to do. Check the Thai Embassy websites, check Richard Barrow in Thailand's Facebook page. And yeah, I hope this helped, and give this video a like if it did, and subscribe if you haven't already. We're going to be making loads of videos once we're out of this quarantine about traveling around Thailand. And we've already been in Laos for 2 years, so if you're just new to this channel, go and watch all of our videos about Laos as well, because Laos is going to be opening for tourism really soon. Fingers crossed. Let's hope it all goes to plan. And yeah, see you next time.